All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Michelle from SolarEdge. We have a real treat this evening. Whether you are winding down for the day or maybe you're just getting started, maybe it's in the middle of consultations, who knows? But we have Joshua King, who is a master at his craft. And I'm just so happy to have you. Joshua, where are you calling in from this evening?
Currently Canada, but because of virtual, I'm all over the place. So I'm in Colombia. I have a few team members in Colombia, the country. A week and a half from now, then I think I'm back in the States for some events a month after that. But currently Canada. That's the answer.
Yeah, I always know when I ask you that you could be really anywhere across the globe.
Yeah. Yeah.
You started in Australia, right?
I did about 10 years ago. Very, very different market. Good old
Hmm.
days in Australia, though.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's awesome. And you're based in Canada for the most part, somewhat
Not
permanent, or?
No, not really. I have family in Canada, so I spend as much time as here as possible, but only a handful of months a year. A majority of my time is spent in like there's a ton of people that we work with in Central and South America. We support a ton of offices and outbound call centers and sales agents over there, so I'm there a ton. But then I'm back and forth in the States consulting and helping out. So, where are you based, Josh? Is a very
Yeah.
difficult answer for me.
It's
Yeah.
really any given day. Um, okay, so teammates, we're on at 5. It's 5 on the dot here. I just want to do a quick reminder that we do have a chat going as well, and we can see your chats. Also, what I love about what Joshua does is he brings knowledge on the remote selling side, and honestly, I feel like that's the untapped market in terms of education and training for solar salespeople. I know that a lot of solar salespeople want to get into remote selling, but have no idea how to do that and don't have any guidance. So, thanks for being that leader for us, Joshua. What's going on in your world lately? I think there's some exciting things.
Yeah, I mean, a ton of stuff. And thanks for having me on. I'll always take opportunities to spread the good word about remote, what it does for people's lifestyles, for their business operations. What we're focusing on now is infrastructure. So, I've been in solar sales for over a decade now, and a lot of it has been remote solar sales. A lot on the sales end, building sales teams. And as you go through an industry and a specific thing, you eventually want to start building the platform to enable people to do what you've done. So what we've been really focusing on, especially the past year and a half, is software and sort of community and education. The past 2 years or 2 years and a bit, we've been working on our platform, Cinevo, which is a software platform that enables the remote selling aspect and connects EPCs and salespeople. And then this year, we're launching a ton of stuff and sort of upgrades. Last year was our first public year to get it out there and prove the concept. And so this year we really want to perfect it. We're bringing on a lot of partnerships. We recently just partnered up with Joe Moose coming on as an equity
Mhm.
partner. Co-founder SolarCon, Solar Academy. A lot of people know him. I don't know if I need to intro him. So we're really just trying to. We know remote is going to be the future. We're trying to give people the best possible platform to transition over or start in solar because of that. So that's
Mhm.
what our focus is right now.
We're so thankful for that. And yeah, I'm so happy to see even more collaboration with the leaders of solar in the space. So I know tonight, this evening, we're talking about just really the basics of remote selling, getting people's feet wet. One last plug here. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat. We're going to make it interactive tonight. It's not often we get Joshua King here. So please ask your questions. No bad questions. One question that's on here, are we recording it? Yes, this will be on YouTube afterwards, so you can reflect and show the rest of your teams. So Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I might interject and have a couple of comments throughout.
Please do. If anyone asks a questions, just interrupt me. I can talk about this stuff for hours. And yeah, in terms of the questions, I've been bringing people that are either beginner or advanced to remote. So if anyone does have any question, but they think it's too dumb or stupid, just get it out there. It's important to ask that stuff and not figure it out by yourself. But yeah, I put together some, the title of it being basics of remote solar selling. So the audience I know is pretty broad. And I'll share my screen and jump into it. I really wanted to, if I've got some valuable time with you guys. Michelle's given me 20, 30, maybe a bit more time there. So I'm trying to pump everything with gold nuggets, if you will. I'm going to be covering lead generation, sales strategy, customer psychology, market trends, trying to have at least one thing that everyone walks away with. So that's the point of this. But if anyone has any questions along the way, please let me know. I'll try to look at the chat, but Michelle, interrupt me at any time on any point here, and we can see if we can add some value to people. So basic itinerary. I hope everyone can see this and it's working properly. Go through a few things here. One is I'm going to talk about the trends in market right now, specifically with what I call solar leg. For some reason in the solar industry, new trends are caught on to much later than other industries. And a lot of people think, oh, virtual remote selling, that doesn't work. You got to have a handshake with a customer or it can't happen. Or, you can't size a system properly. It's not going to happen. You got to look at the roof, in the early stages of the sales process. So I love showing statistics and the way customers are now buying things. We'll go into that a bit. I'll also talk about the importance of potentially looking at adding on or full on transitioning to remote and virtual and what that's going to look like in the future, why it's important to diversify your sales channels there. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty processes, bit of strategy, lots of little gold nuggets, my top 4 or 5 pointers and things to look out for. There's some very obvious things that people always mess up on when they first transition into remote. So it's good to point those out before you have to, throw away a few months of your remote solar sales operations on that one mistake. And then finally, I'll wrap it up with some tools, system architectures, technical stuff in case anyone out there is just thinking, what tools do I need? I'm running an in-home operation now. I have a door-to-door team. I'm a door knocker. I don't really use a lot of tech and systems. What does it look like? What do I have to bring on? So hopefully that encompasses a lot of different topics. And let's jump into it here. So the first thing I usually have to do, or I feel I have to do whenever I talk about remote on a fundamental level, especially to people that have never done it before, is that it's possible. I'm going to condense that section of this as much as I can, but here's 1 or 2 slides that really sort of, if you look at these, you got to realize that yes, the world is moving remote, the world is moving virtual. First one is just e-commerce sales. Obviously, I don't even need to show this. People are buying more things online over time. Now, if you were a bit skeptical at this, it would be because e-commerce is usually lower ticket items. But Josh, solar is generally a higher ticket. There's much more weight to it. Homeowners is a big decision. The world is moving everything online. Tesla, this is 2018. I couldn't actually find the statistics of the recent years, but 78% of Teslas were purchased online, and 80, I believe it was 82 or 86% of that 78% never had a test drive. So we start getting into higher ticket, more heavy items to purchase. What's a Tesla going for? The lowest model at 30, 40K, upwards of $100,000, $200,000. And then I found a really interesting statistic. I knew this was something like this, but nearly 40% of millennials are comfortable buying a home online. And then again, there's an additional statistic about a percentage of them, they only need a 3D tour of the home and they'd happy to do it. I've spoken to solar customers and they've told me a handful, not that many, but a handful have told me that the house they're currently in that we're installing solar on, they bought the home online, they never saw it in person. So look, whether it's now or whether it's in 1 year or 2 years or 10 years, it's difficult to look at the current trend and say, things are not moving virtual, that in-home is still fundamental, that you can't do it any other way. Now, this is not to say that, in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, in-home's going to be gone. Of course not. I think there's going to be in-home sales for far longer than we actually think. There's always going to be somebody that is going to be able to knock a door or go into for an in-home presentation and make it happen. But the trend is clearly virtual, right? And the reason I'm putting so much energy into this, because I understand the zeitgeist of virtual, that many people still think, a shockingly large percentage still think that it's not possible. They'd love to do it, but it just can't be done. The trend is moving towards that. I don't think it's a matter of if, it's more so a matter of when. For me, the when was years ago. But I think in the US market, it's present, if not started a year or two ago, and it will certainly continue to move that way. Okay. The importance. I'm going to try to not bash in-home or door-to-door. I ran national door-to-door teams for many years. I learned so much from it, but there are obvious things that we need to pay attention to. That if you're looking at investing into adding virtual or adding remote sales to your operations, that virtual and remote can solve. That maybe you're having problems in-home that you weren't aware of, or maybe you're very aware of them. Remote and virtual can often be the thing that fills that gap. A few things that I probably don't need to mention anybody that's running a team right now, but recruiting, your talent pool, when you're talking about sales, admin, any in-office admin, if you have offices in one area and you're limited to that, and you can't reach out to other areas, remote or virtual, you have a smaller talent pool there. We have constantly changing market dynamics we have to be aware of. Regulation, California, shout out NEM 3.0. You build a massive in-person only operation in California. Net metering happens, and okay, well, do you stay in California? I personally still think that the market in California is amazing. However, we don't know what's going to happen next, right? And that's sort of the excitement of the solar coaster. You don't really know what's going to happen with regulation in it, but you do need to be prepared. And remote and virtual certainly can help. Instead of putting all your eggs into one basket in one specific area and not having an ability to reach out to customers in another town, another state, so on and so forth. Customer perception of in-home sales as well. Super important to keep in mind. We used to, years ago, when we first started in remote and virtual, customers would tell us, man, if you can't get out here and shake my hand, it's not going to happen. But I'm hearing the opposite now. I'm hearing customers saying, why do you have to come into my house? But can we just do it, virtually? I did this remotely. Why can't I do this remotely? So that's something to keep in mind as well. Logistics, associated costs. If you run a door knocking team or an in-home operation, drive times, and a lot of stuff heavy on the sales end. Obviously with install, we can't really do much. We still got to get there. We still got to do site surveys and do our due diligence on people's properties. But on the sales, on the admin side of things, certainly an issue that remote and virtual can come in and solve. This last one here, I'm not going to claim to be the front line of being a positive environmentalist, and the only reason I'm in solar is to save the planet. I'm not going to say that, but we can't ignore the fact that if we have a massive sales operation and sales team driving gas guzzlers around, but then we're pitching solar to our customers, something's off there. I used to do in-home presentations a ton, and I would always feel a bit strange rocking up to the customer's property with a car that obviously took a lot of gas, right? And I'm not trying to cast shade on anybody that does this, but it's just something to think about. And if that does motivate you, certainly remote and virtual, especially on the administrative and sales side, does fill a gap there. All right. And productivity and efficiency. I'll get a bit more into this in a sec, but ultimately this boils down to how many homeowners can you help in a specific given period of time, right? In-home, we have physical constraints, drive times, as I mentioned before. There's a lot of things that hinder our ability to scale up in a safe way. But when remote and virtual are thrown into the equation, there's some pretty cool things that we can do in terms of using our time more wisely. So what exactly can we apply remote and virtual to? Is it purely just the sales process? What part of the sales process? What mediums are we using? What does virtual mean? Is it just video conferencing? I've made a short list of what I would say are the virtual and remote aspects of the solar sales process. As soon as the sale is done, I'm waiting for the drones that are able to drop the panels and install themselves. But no, when we talk about remote and virtual, we're talking up to the sales process, right? We're always, well, I don't want to say always, because, we get some robots out there eventually. They might be able to do good work for site surveys. But up until this point, we're still going to need in-person site surveys. We're still going to need in-person installation and servicing. Customer service, sales processes, and all that fun stuff, that's the cutoff at this point. Ask me in 10 years when Tesla releases, what's the robot, Optimus? I might have a different story. But some basic examples of what we can apply virtual and remote processes to: email, SMS marketing for lead generation, digital marketing for lead generation, content creation for lead generation. I'm going to stop on this for 2 seconds. Content creation is, in my opinion, over the next year or two, going to be, to some extent, I believe it's going to replace the traditional cold outreach. So a lot of people think cold calling, cold emails. Content creation is taking over every other industry for an amazing source of customers for brands across the world. I remember that solar leg I talked about. For some reason, it hasn't hit solar. We use content creation for education, for software, for the external stuff, but for customers, for some reason, we still haven't tapped into the ability to create brands that customers are aware of and discover from social media. And content creation, I'll talk about it a bit later, but that is something I want everyone to keep in mind, because obviously it's remote, it's virtual, it's social media. It's an amazing form of lead generation. Give it 1 to 2 years. I promise you, we'll have a few North Stars that have an amazing business model, and their customers are finding them purely through social media, no cold calling, door knocking, even digital marketing or paid traffic. And they'll be able to build businesses purely based off of the brand and the audience they've created on social media, of just being a brand that's helping homeowners decrease their power bill. Appointment setting over the phone or Zoom, finalizing deals over the phone or Zoom, the close, virtual site surveys, roof measurements, panel placements. I'd like to put in preliminary virtual site surveys, roof measurements, panel placements. We can't always get it perfect. And if you can't get perfect virtual site surveys, you got to get someone out there. Virtual production calculations, preliminary shading reports, again, preliminary. But what I'm trying to get at here is the whole process. It's not just appointment setting. It's not just running ads. You can get the entire sales process up to a point where a customer is ready to rock, ready to throw permits in remotely and virtually. The last two there need to be handled with care. We've built our own production software from the ground up. I've used every production and shading report tool out there. A lot of them are fantastic, but there's still errors to be had. So just because you move certain pieces of the sales process to virtual and remote, I always like to say you need to be mindful of the production and the shading reports and your system designs. But preliminary, cool. Just make sure
Josh,
your engineers are double checking that. Yes.
Yeah, I just had a quick question while we're still on this slide, and it just made me think about, is there a particular segments that you think are easier to tap into initially and then maybe gradually grow in the virtual process as opposed to jumping all in?
For sure. I'm an all-in guy, but I see different implementations across the board. Some successful operations that I've consulted for, this is what they've done to put their step in. There's two main ways that they've jumped into, and I'll get into a bit in the next slide or two, but just a quick summary. One, I have a door knocking operation. I have an in-home operation. I want to jump into virtual. Okay, grab your appointment setting process and move that virtual, move that remote. So that could look like a few different things. That could look like your digital marketing, getting customers to self-book appointments, having a team to confirm those appointments for your in-home guys to get out there. That's a pretty common one, and I've seen it done very, very successfully. You just have to be mindful of something that I'm going to talk about in a sec here with that appointment setting process. But that is generally, I don't want to say it's not scary, because if you've never done that before, it might be a bit, but that is a relatively easy way to jump into it. Let me take my appointment setting and get my in-home guys to keep doing that. However, another way that I would actually prefer, what I suggest people to do, is keep your existing in-home operation, whether you're going door to door or whatever, start another section, another team, and they just do virtual. And they might just be doing virtual appointments for your in-home guys, or not taking away from your existing team, starting a new team doing virtual, the whole process, half the process, or some of it. That's generally the quick start guide that I would suggest people to do. Don't just stop your doors. Don't just stop your in-home operations. Take it step by step.
Makes sense.
Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Yeah. There's always a right way to do things. And who am I to have someone that says, hey, I have an amazing in-home operation, it's running smooth, and then say, nah, Stop that. Just move it all virtual and remote. I don't I don't want to hold that bag. Okay. I don't want that responsibility. I want people to do it properly, because if they do it improperly the first time, they get a bad taste in their mouth. And virtual is too good to not do once and not do right. You start off right. But anyway, yeah, some basic examples. The point being of this slide, the whole process we can cover here, right? So here is a very high level, very basic fundamental view of what the sales process looks like. I'm going to expand on a few points here. The reason I'm putting this is because some people think that when you go to virtual remote on the front end, on the sales side, at least, the process needs to get crazily complicated and the structure looks different than a traditional in-home process, which is not the case. Simplicity will always win out. Keep things simple in all aspects. However, there are some differences of each step. I'll explain, it's pretty self-explanatory, but leads, we'll talk about some lead generation strategies in a sec here. You have your lead, however you got that. Then the next step on a very macro level would be your discovery call. This is my preference for a sales process. There are others out there, but this is what I've seen works the best. A discovery call, AKA we call it a problem call within Virtual Solar Club. We're diving into the customer's problem. Your bills are going up. You're not independent enough. You want a more consistency on your power bill there. You're about to get an EV, so you need to make sure you don't have a double, triple power bill the next year. Whatever the reason is for it, they have a problem. They need to solve it. Let's dive into that. Very important piece. I'm going to jump into how important that is in a sec. But that is your platform building. Okay, you're building that platform. That can be done over the phone. I guess you could do it over Zoom. I'm not really a massive fan of video conferencing, but whatever medium you're using can be done completely remote, completely virtual. People are more than willing to have that conversation with you just over the phone with you. That's not a quick conversation. That is a fairly in-depth conversation. I'll give you the breakdown in a sec here. Next step on a macro level, get their utility bill. Oh, starting to sound like a door-to-door closer process, right? Very similar. Grab our utility bill. We do what we know. We design. We get our nice SolarEdge inverter there. We get our panels up. We have our design, our production values, and our estimated savings ready for our customer. And then I've called it a finalization call here. Sales guys would call it the closing call. Again, I like phones. I'm not a fan of video conferencing, but it can be done. I know many people that do it effectively. That final call, so we're talking, paperwork, going through proposals, financing, getting everything wrapped up, welcome call, scheduling, site surveys. Those final steps can all be done here. Yeah, could you add another step? Do some customers need another step? Do they need time to think? Absolutely. On the sales end, we always want to wrap things up as soon as possible, but that can be as simple as it needs to be. Very similar to an in-home. Now, how we implement that, that's where things get a bit different. But the reason I'm showing this again is because there's no secrets to remote or virtual. It's the same sales process. We've all learned the step-by-steps, having that discovery, having a final closing call, maybe a follow-up or two. But that is what it's looking like. There's no mystery. It's how you implement that. It's the tools that you use. It's where you put your time and energy that's very different from in-home and door-to-door operations. Okay. Yeah, don't think I need any more explanation on that one. Let's dive into the differences. So I would assume that people watching this now have done in-home, door-to-door. Maybe they've tried virtual, remote. Maybe they're moving into solar and they just want to go straight into remote. Regardless, here are the top differences of in-home or door-to-door, or what we've been traditionally taught is the proper way to do it versus what actually works in virtual and remote. Number one, by far, and if you forget everything I say today, just remember this: the discovery call, that first one, that first piece, that first interaction we have with the customer becomes 10 times more important than it is when we're running a pure in-home operation. What are we taught in door-to-door sales? Knock, knock, knock. Mr. Customer, okay, all the neighbors are doing okay. Come back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Fantastic. Right on my notepad. All right, good stuff. Out. In and out. That's always been the traditional way of door knocking. In and out, in and out, in and out. And where's the magic happen? The close. That's when we get in there. You know, the full presentation takes an hour, 2 hours, and we lock it down. I promise you, remote is completely different. Why is it different? What do I have to do as a customer to no-show an appointment? In home, someone knocks on my door. Oh, that's a bit awkward. He's at my patio. Oh, I forgot. I told that door knocker that we had, honey, do you want to? Oh, I guess I'll go open the door. We got that. Like, there's a pressure there, right?
It's giving me PTSD, Joshua.
It's a bit, you know, when you have someone on your door and you did technically agree to that door knocker 2 days ago, you got to at least open the door. And look, guys, I'm not proud of it, but you know, years ago when I started in door to door, I can't count how many times I knock on a door knocker had set me an appointment. Customer opened it halfway and said, "Oh, we canceled the appointment with the office." And I just, you know, used a sneaky line like, "Yeah, I've been driving. Can I just use the bathroom?" Oh, like, okay, fine. I walk out an hour and a half later with a signed contract, right? It's different. In home is different. There's that pressure to answer the door. What is remote and virtual? What do they not have to do? Answer the phone or join the video conferencing room. So, in my opinion, this is actually a positive for both the customer and the sales rep. Why? Because the sales rep actually has to add value on that first interaction. A quick knock, knock, knock. Oh yeah, all the neighbors are doing. Okay, it's not going to work anymore. I can't just start calling. Oh yeah, I was going to save you money. Okay, tomorrow 4 p.m. I mean, maybe if it's a super hot lead, yeah, okay, sure, but we got to really start focusing on actually being able to add value to customers early on if we want them to pick up the phone tomorrow at 4 p.m. or join that video conferencing room. We can't get around it anymore. No amount of automations, emails, SMS sequences, AI chatbots are going to do the work for us. If they don't want it, they don't want it, and they're just not going to answer the phone. My phone's been on silent for like 2.5 years, by the way. I don't answer calls anymore. That's just not the life I live, and I don't think many others do either. It's like I'm only answering that call if I am expecting that call, right? And I want that call. So what does this do for virtual? That discovery call, that's everything. Cold lead, warm lead, age lead, hot lead. You got to spend time with your customer. So what's a door-to-door interaction? Could be 3-4 minutes, 5 minutes, could be longer. Many people, when they start remote and virtual, it's like minutes. When we're doing remote, no. Man, I usually say 15 minutes, 10 minimum. Don't go too long, but 15, 20 minutes on that first call. Like, that's a decent conversation. Don't go crazy. Don't get super technical on the first call. I'm not telling you to, you know, be with them for hours, but much longer than that traditional, oh, appointment setting is just numbers. It's just numbers. No, you got to spend time with them. And giving them value right off the bat is the key there. This is, and I'll spend more time on this point than anything else. This makes the whole process much better. All right. The door-to-door style, in and out, doesn't work. The discovery, appointment setting interaction is king. The close, coffees for closers, we're always taught that. That's not where the magic happens anymore. And also keep this in mind, because many business owners and, you know, young guys who got a bit of cash and they want to start a remote solar company, they just say, I'll just outsource my appointment setting to, you know, overseas, or get some random guys, some VAs, just train them up real quick. They'll just book appointments for me. What's that going to do? Just going to load up a bunch of no-shows for you because the customers weren't getting value, right? All they have to do is not answer the phone. What does it take for you to answer your phone these days? A lot for me. A lot for me. If a random number's calling me and, oh, that sales guy, no, I'm not answering the phone. Come on. You got to be able to add value. Build the pain. Show them what's happening with these rate increases. This ridiculous. Customers are paying $500, $600, $700 a month in some states. Like, this is wild. Something needs to change here. You know, connect with them, build rapport with them, be confident, teach them something. On that first call, it's not just a wham, bam, thank you, man. It doesn't work anymore. You got to build value. Okay. Most important point of this entire webinar, for sure. Secondly here, simplicity. You have to keep things simple. On the phone, video conferencing, you have a set amount of data that's going to get into your customer's head. There's always going to be a percentage that listening over the phone, they're distracted over here. You're not there grabbing their hand and looking them in the eye and have 100% of their attention. So simplicity, get straight to the point, don't waffle, and you know, really ask yourself, what do I actually have to talk about and what do I not have to talk about? do I really need to talk about all this random stuff, or do I just need to get straight to the point? This is what's happening. It's what your warranty looks like. Here's where your savings estimates. Boom, here it is. A lot of people, especially remote, when they come from in home, they have this laundry list of stuff that they just have to, features and benefits, and oh my goodness, talking about technicalities for 30 minutes. Keep it simple. All right. I think that's probably in general, but remote and virtual is certainly true. Focus on the real reason they're there, right? And digital visuals. I also have this point down here. Digital visuals is a term that I use for showing people, on their screen, sending them a link or something, just these in-depth proposals and graphs out the wazoo. And I'm not a fan. Look, the visuals, totally, but digital visuals. Here's why. You know what I like? Getting it in front of them so it's theirs, instead of screen sharing some intricate graphs that they're sort of following around and going, oh, can you just scroll up? Okay. What is that going to eventually lead to? Is it, this is too confusing. Can you just send this all to me and I'll deal with it later? What do I like? Send them something. It's theirs. It's their PDF document. They can see on their screen. I like paper and pen. Get them to write things down. Make it theirs, right? But digital visuals very often overcomplicate it, especially if you are relying on those very in-depth graphs. And, I know a lot of you guys like extremely technical breakdowns. If I can't persuade you out of making that more simplified, at least give it to your customer as opposed to screen sharing, right? And another reason I don't generally like video conferencing is because people always screen share this stuff. And then the customer's like, okay, what was that number? What was that? Honey, did you see that one? Oh, wait, can you just stop? Could you scroll down? Oh, and then it just gets overcomplicated and, they're lost, right? The digital visuals, not a fan. Keep it simple. Keep it simple and give it to them. Don't make it on your screen share. And ultimately, the last point here is don't assume video conferencing or Zoom is the only way. I'm a phones only guy. Any visuals I want, I give to them, send it to them, get them to write it down. It's theirs. But communication is done over the phone. I'm not, horribly against. I'm not saying Zoom is the worst thing ever, but we've done so many A/B tests in terms of customer comfortability, in terms of conversion rates, in terms of customer understanding and getting confused, and ultimately at the end of the day, show rates, cancel rates, and sales rates. Zoom underperforms compared to phones. And usually people freak out when I say that because it doesn't make sense. Technology, people don't want to show their face. People can't figure out the tech. You get digital visuals on the screen when you're video conferencing. Whereas if you simplify things, they have the visuals in front of them. They're writing things down. You're sending them things so they have it in front of them. And you're just speaking over the phone. People are comfortable with this. Give me 5-10 years, maybe I'll be talking a different story, right? Maybe people are more comfortable just straight doing video conferencing. What's the demographic though for solar? Is it 20-year-olds that have never really done a phone call before and always do FaceTime? No, it's not. 30, 35, 40, 45, 50s. We're talking millennials and the next generation up. We all still grew up, and I'm a millennial. We all still grew up on the phone. The video conferencing thing is not as comfortable for us, right? Give it some time. Might be different. Right now, I'm still a phones only guy instead of the video conferencing FaceTime stuff. Not much of a fan.
So we have some good questions. I do want to shout out Tommy as well. So Tommy's a vet of virtual selling, but I just wanted to reiterate that he said he got something from you already, and that's to build more value from the very beginning. So I think that that's a really big deal. I want to talk about Ashley's, though. It's a really great question. How far in advance do you send the proposals and visuals before the call?
Yeah, and I just saw Tommy said never. Is right on point. Now, or maybe he said never in terms of ever sending it. I wouldn't send it before. Okay, if we're talking pure sales, your job is you have a bunch of information, right? Let's just assume this is all my information I need to give my customer, and I need to present this information in a way that is going to get the customer motivated. If I could just send a customer proposals and just get sales left, right, and center, wouldn't need sales guys. So Tommy has thrown never in there, ever send proposals and visuals. I'm going to go halfway. I'm going to say if you are speaking with a customer and you want to send proposals, you're sending them when you're on the call with them and going through that exact section. However, my preferred method is what I call self-proposals, where you're actually getting the customer to create the proposal. There's a very specific way of doing this. We cover a lot in our training, either on a piece of paper or on their screen in a really cool way. And you're actually getting them to create their own proposal. It's pretty cool. But no, before I wouldn't send it out. You're releasing. It's like playing poker. You got pocket aces and you throw it out on the first hand, right? It's not the best for sales.
Okay, so it sounds like maybe once you get them on the line, you'll send them some sort of visual or something.
When you're talking about that visual and you're ready to present that in a specific way, hey, I'm just going to send you something now. Can you take a look at this? Let's go over it. Exactly.
Great.
That's it. Cool. But yeah, I mean, if you're, especially what I believe was Tommy said, that value add on the front end of that discovery call and the digital visuals, not sending that stuff too early. If you took those two things and implement it with your remote solar sales right now, those two things alone are game changers. Those are probably the top two or top three mistakes I see people making. Quick discovery calls and just sending all the proposals before the actual appointment. All right. Another thing to keep in mind is the data that we have. So we got body language, we have tonality, and we have script, what we say, how we say, and what we do while we say it. One of the biggest arguments against remote and virtual is that, but you don't have body language, so you can't convey as much. My argument is that's like going to the gym, only working out arms all day long, but then claiming you don't have leg muscles. You got leg muscles. You've just not trained them before. It might feel weird when you first transition yourself or your team from in-home to remote. I always say you feel like a fish out of water. You're on the phone with a customer and you're like, I'm used to shaking their hand and, having a stiff back and, being authority in the household and, swiveling from partner to partner. But now I'm just talking over the phone and you don't feel like you have as much control. That's just starting out. When you really get into phone sales, video conferencing as well, but for me specifically phone sales, you will be able to gauge like echolocation, your customers, where they are in their house, what they're doing, if they're looking away from the phone, if not, if they're speaking to their partner quietly, if they're, there's a lot of different emotions you can gauge from tonality, pacing, and the volume of their voice and your voice. So I always like to challenge that idea. Again, half of the battle for transitioning people to remote is actually showing them that it's possible. The virtual muscles purely just need to be built. You may not have it right now. You may feel weird just speaking over the phone or just doing video conferencing when you've always been in home. Promise you, the muscles are there. You've just been doing arms all day in the gym for years and years and years. Your leg muscles still exist. We got to do a few leg presses. We got to work on our tonality, our pacing. Pacing is such a massive one in remote solar sales and phone sales. Your volume, the control you have in conversations. Those muscles are there. Just because your body language is gone doesn't mean you're losing now any oomph to the communication. You just got to practice it, right? With all things, brand new to phone sales, brand new to remote, you're not going to be amazing when you first start out. You got to just practice it. Another thing I'll point out is support systems. This is something that is rarely talked about in remote. If you're 25 to 30 plus, especially pre-COVID, office jobs, you're with teams, you're in physical environments, you're not used to being alone. It's rare. We're still in a social environment. I'm a bit of a cave troll myself, but even I am not used to just being always alone. There's always social interactions happening. As we move into this virtual and remote work world, post-COVID, and people start getting remote jobs and switching to remote sales, one thing that you really need to focus on, which is the massive effect on your mental health, is being alone in four walls 5, 6, 7 hours a day and only speaking to people over the phone or video conferencing. It can hurt you. You might not feel it initially, but I've seen it destroy people. Why do we not think it's going to hurt us initially? Because we've never really felt loneliness. What's one of the things they do in prisons to really get at people? They put them in isolation. Not having contact with people and not speaking to people on a consistent basis is rough for mental health. You might be able to soldier it out for a few weeks or a few months. But I promise you, if you're totally alone doing this, the stress of sales and handling customers, making sure everything's running smoothly, and oh, there's an installation issue here, and oh, the commission is late here. Man, this game is rough. Don't do it alone. Find a support system. So solar is it's a massively growing community. There's no lack of people to find. Find a support system, find a community, find people that are doing this, spend time with them. We have something called the virtual call center in Virtual Solar Club. And what it is, it's an online app everyone downloads. And throughout the day, everyone just jumps in, and there's like a voice chat rooms. And so people are making calls with each other, and they can hear other people making calls, and they ask questions. And we have different like sections like chit chat and pitch practice and different things that they can jump into at any point in time and just feel like they're in an office, right? And that really helps for mental health. I promise you. And people out there thinking, oh, mental health, no, I'm just a sales guy. I don't need. I'm telling you, the stuff long term affects your results, and you need to be mindful of that. You swap to remote, make sure you have a support system, a community, people that you're engaging with that are doing the same thing that you are on a consistent basis. It does eventually make a difference. Certainly. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it all over the place. Big one. I think this is the final gold nugget before I get into some other stuff. Any questions? Have we caught up with, do we need to catch up with anything? Because this is
I think we've caught up on those questions. People are very engaged.
Yeah. Leads. Let's talk about leads. I told you I'm just going to talk about as many gold nuggets as I can here. Let's try to get through leads. One of the first questions and the biggest questions is, okay, but where do I get my leads? I've been door knocking, here's my lead generation for in-home, but where do I get my leads? I'm going to summarize this real quickly. There are leads everywhere. Lead sources are everywhere if you're creative. Let's talk about cold outreach, colds, SMS, email. One thing to be mindful of, compliance and regulatory updates are happening right now. So if you're in the cold outreach game virtually, just be mindful of that. But just because things might be getting regulated out here or there, or it's a bit more difficult, doesn't mean that you have to start spending a ton of cash on leads. I spoke about content creation and brand creation earlier. I believe this is the next wave of lead generation for the individual or small team that is in these, boring industries, solar and home renovations. You see these, people dancing on TikTok and they have millions of followers. Why can't we use that platform, not just specifically TikTok, although it's a great one, to generate brand, to generate an audience of people that are attracted to, our offering here? How many millions of people in the States right now are having, issues with their power bills and scrolling through TikTok or scrolling on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube every single day, and would be attracted to content that is speaking to their current situation? This is something that is completely not talked about, especially in solar. It's that solar leg that I was talking about. Every other industry, though, I know famous real estate agents, guys in on the installation side of solar. There's a guy called Solar Goat. Shout out, he's the nicest guy ever. He does installation repairs. He's got 100,000 followers on TikTok, just showing him repairing, bad solar installations for customers. His lead flow, I haven't asked him about this, but I'm sure it's amazing of customers reaching out to him for more repair work. This is an untapped source. Strongly suggest people to take a look at that. Referral networks, HVAC, roofers, pest control, industry partners, friends and family, of course, affiliate networks, existing customers, and then eventually, the only lead source that majority of people know, paid traffic, of course. There's always that. You will eventually need that to scale. You don't have to jump to it straight off the bat if you don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do so. There are many other lead sources out there. All in all, though, when you enter into the virtual realm of solar sales, there are dozens of lead sources. You just got to be creative with it. Think outside the box. Everyone's going to that lead source. Okay, let's look somewhere else. Let's find where are homeowners who have big power bills that could benefit from solar. Let's find it. Okay. I could spend a lot more on that side of things, but it is a challenge for people when they first think of that. So I always like to push people outside the box. Tons of sources out there. You just got to know where to look. I think one or two here. Yeah, and then we'll wrap up. I don't want to mention all of this without also making people aware of what they need to follow in terms of compliance. A few things, you guys can Google this later if you and just write this down. If you don't know what these are, TCPA compliance. So that talks about telephone communications in the US. Opt-in compliance, what leads you can and can't call, when you can call them, how you can call them, how you can contact them. Email and domain verifications. Again, you can just Google this, write it down on a list later. It's not utterly important to verify your emails when you're doing email blasts to your customers. 10DLC registration, that's for text messaging, who you can text, who you can't text. SMS messaging, text messaging is super valuable in virtual, just needs to be done properly. Your calling hours, again, when you can and can't call. And then finally, like I said before, always quality check production calculations and project packs. Sometimes when sales reps go remote and virtual and they're not there at the roof, especially a lot of these design platforms I'm seeing now, it's easy for sales reps just to like push a bunch of buttons to get onto the next slide. Just make sure that you're designing your systems properly. Your production calculations are done properly. That the system is going to do what your customer says it's going to do. That doesn't change if you're selling them over the phone, over Zoom, in person, on a hot air balloon. So make sure that that is still being stuck to. Get your systems in place so that yourself or your sales team doesn't start, not using the software that designs the system properly just because they're at home selling the deal as opposed to in the customer's house. Okay. And then lastly, but not leastly, I've just got some tools. This is some basic stuff we can get through: dialers, CRMs, system design tools, project trackers. A lot of this stuff, automations are not fundamental, but certainly you'd want to jump into the world of automations later, no-show sequences and warm-up sequences for your customers, more information to them, training, education, support systems. And I could go into a ton more there, but that's an outline. I'm pretty sure people these days are pretty switched on that they got to know, they got to have this stuff. And then I've wrapped it up here. This might look confusing. Michelle, I can shoot this to you. This is just a basic system architecture of like a virtual solar sales operation. Works if you're an individual or a larger team. And it just outlines lead flow, where it goes to your dialer, your sequences, doing your problem call, scheduling, follow-up sequences, appointment reminders. Very basic, nothing complex, but I can shoot this through to everybody just for a starting point if they want a basic architecture. So I'm imagining like door-to-door people never even having anything like this. I got my pen and paper, I got my iPad, I knock and I close. You never really have to think about these workflows in virtual. So I can throw this out to you guys if you'd like. Yeah, and I believe that is about it. I'm open for questions.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions. One a little bit earlier, you were talking about the true value of solar and why people go solar.
Sure.
Can you expand on how you get to that with
Yeah,
the customer?
for sure. Look, I come from the Australian market where you never saved a customer a penny from day one. You always had to wait till the finance term ended before they saw a positive ROI. So we have 5-year finance terms in Australia, up to 7. And we never went in with, hey, you're just going to save a bunch of money right off the bat. That's like, we have much longer finance terms here and higher power bills in the US, so we can do that. So what we had to do in Australia is come up with other benefits of solar. It's strange to say, oh, it's not just money. Independence, freedom, certainty on power bills, them knowing that the kids that are growing up in this household are going to be taken care of, whatever it looks like. Getting away from this idea that solar, fundamentally, the only way it benefits customers is if it saves them $200 a month from day one. And I think this is general. This is not just remote, but this is really something we have to hone in on. Some states out there with very low utility rates, salespeople there have already had to do this for quite a while, selling the independence, selling the freedom. But if people in the U.S. market right now, it's salespeople in the U.S. market right now, don't catch on to the idea that, here's the biggest line: solar doesn't take this philosophy to the extreme. Solar doesn't actually have to save people money for them to see the benefit of it. Now, very few instances, solar is not going to save them money if the system is designed properly, but take it to the extreme. What does it do for people? Okay, my bill is consistent now. I have more independence. I don't know where my energy is coming from. Um, I can budget properly because I know things aren't going to randomly double, and my utility provider isn't going to announce a surprise 30% increase was just announced and approved for everyone. There's so many more things other than, oh, cool, I get $100 from day one in savings, that I'm not going to say soon because it looks like rates are just going to keep going up. But if you are able to hone in on, I'm a homeowner, other than saving money, what can solar do for me, and sell it off of that, and then use the savings, whatever that might be, as a cherry on top, maybe as like a little closing tool. That's when you really start honing in on what solar sales really is. What can solar do for people other than save them money? Right.
Totally. And then, utility regulations, like you mentioned, in California happening, they're making it a little less advantageous in terms of savings for people. And so to get really good at the other values, I think is really important.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so I mean, there are so many nuggets in this. It's unbelievable. But Ashley, just to boil it down, are there a couple of things that you think makes you particularly successful in your phone pitches?
Personally,
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I guess I'll boil it down to three. One is I've done it a long time, and I can relate to a large group of people. That's not really, I know it's not something you can all of a sudden turn on and learn, but I do believe being able to relate to people and empathize with them is a very powerful sales tool. So that's the empathy and connecting with people is one. However, you can connect to someone all day long, but if you don't have a proper process, it's not going to work. Number two, confidence. I am naturally confident. I've always been naturally confident. In solar, you're going to someone and saying, I know a better situation than you're in right now. And unless you're confident in that delivery, they're not going to take it from you. You go to a doctor's office and the doctor says, I know exactly what's wrong with you with your symptoms there. This is what you need to do. You need to take this pill. You need to do this, and you're going to be good in about 3 weeks. If the doctor is not confident, and if he goes, I think maybe you try this and maybe it'll work, you're going to be going, oh, maybe I should just ask ChatGPT. The doctor's got to be confident. He has to know what he's talking about. He's giving you something that's better than your current situation. Confidence is key. Okay, you have to be the professional there. The whole thing in solar, the customer is always right. I do not like that philosophy. You are the professional. You know how system production works, what can be installed, what can't be installed. If a customer is telling you, no, I want this, this, and this, and it's outside the realm of possibility, don't be one of those sales rep that says, okay, maybe no, tell them straight up. No, John, this is how it works. Here's the benefits. No, that's not achievable, man. If someone else has told you, I'm just being straightforward with you. It's not how it works. That confidence does wonders for you. And number one, having a process and a structure. If you're just winging it constantly and sort of throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing if it sticks, seeing if it's ready, it doesn't work. You got to have a structure. To this day, if I'm on sales, I get my script in front of me, same script I've used for years and years and years and years. Get it in front of you, follow the script, follow the process. And to get access to those resources, don't have to reinvent the wheel either. Again, find accountability partners, find education, find training, and find out the process that works. All right. So you got your confidence, connect with people, all be done over the phone, and find your script. No big difference with in person.
Yeah, I think that with the have confidence piece, I think the thing that I learned probably the hard way was that customers want to be guided. You're the expert, and they
Exactly.
want to be guided to the next step. And so definitely that confidence and making sure, like you said earlier, what you're saying, the things that you're saying are important, and you're leaving the stuff out that's not important, because on the phone, um, you're on the couch, it's easy to go too long and be too long-winded and stuff, and they're not going to tell you to shut up. But on the phone, it's harder to keep that attention. So definitely say the things that are important. Leave the other stuff out.
Yep, absolutely.
So a couple of other things. In terms of just a clarification, I don't know if you said this, but do you say that you mostly do 5 to 7 year loans?
That was in Australia. We only
Yeah,
had up to 5-year
I was
loans.
gonna
There's
say.
I don't know if it's the same these days, but that was our thing, 5-year loans. So you can imagine what the monthlies looked like, double, triple
Yeah.
what the customer's current power bill.
Okay. Do you think there is a particular financing type that works better for remote versus not, or are all of
Ooh,
them?
this is a a touchy subject right now, isn't it? Um, Look, it's a spectrum of things that are happening. I'm really interested to see what the financing world in solar looks like in a year and a half, especially as interest rates go down. I've sold a majority of everything I've ever done has been through finance, been through loans. I've seen the PPA craze go up and down and up and down. It looks like it might have a bit more sticking power this time, but I'm more comfortable with loans personally. However, I train people and I consult for teams that do PPAs all day long. I think it boils down to what's your customer, what tax appetite do they have, and what's going to work for them, right? If you have a customer that needs a specific type of approval and has a specific type of a tax appetite, they can't claim the full ITC. Generally, there's a really blatant option to use for them. So I think my end answer is going to be it's customer based, even though I
Mhm.
do like a loan.
Makes sense. So I don't know if you're going to want to give out actual names, but maybe even just the channels or avenues on lead generation, in terms of best performing lead generation channels or partnerships, if you have any in particular.
Yeah, I'll talk about two. So partnerships, the best performing partnership that I've ever been a part of or known of is there are teams right now, and I might be blowing their secret strategy out of the water here though, but there are teams right now, and their number one job is to find HVAC roofing companies, blah blah blah, and work their way into relationships with them, and then do deals with them to get their existing customer lists, and then open up their sales end of the business. So they do the sales, and they come in as the sales wing of ABC Roofing, or new customers that come through the door, they'll just do solar too. So those are amazing partnerships. Now they're extremely difficult to get because everyone wants them, right? Every roofing company right now is probably getting called by solar companies and trying to get their customers and get the referrals. But if you can swing that, if you know a friend or your uncle's friend's buddy owns a contracting company, those are amazing partnerships if you can lock them down. In terms of lead generation, the two ones that I focused on over the past 10 years are cold outreach, cold calling specifically, and paid traffic. So we were the first, at least one of the first, but we had the largest Facebook ad budget in all of Australia for solar in 2017. We were the first ones to ever run solar ads in Australia at that scale. And it was amazing for us. Then everyone figured it out, and then the costs went up. But I still love paid traffic when done properly. The issue is twofold. It's technical. So if you're brand new, it's difficult to figure it out by yourself. And also it's difficult to find a good marketing agency. And then two is it costs money. Now, cold outreach, generally my answer would be go there. But the past year, especially, and new TCPA regulations that have just been announced, just be mindful that you are compliant if you're ever working with cold outreach. But that's personally what I've done. Cold
Super
outreach, cost
helpful.
and paid traffic.
Yeah. All right. I want to make sure we have a couple minutes at least for Virtual Solar Club. So tell us how we can get more from you.
Oh, sure. Let's see. Oh, nice one. Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't know, Virtual Solar Club is a platform that I made three and a half years ago. And it really was built just when I came into the US market, realizing there wasn't a lot of remote and virtual sales, let alone resources. So we are now, I don't know what the numbers look like, but we're seen as one of the big training platforms out there. We certainly lead the charge in remote. What we really are good at is bringing people that have either just done door to door, run door to door teams, and have no experience with remote, and or have never done solar and want to start in remote. Virtual Solar Club is first and foremost a community for those people. We focus on education, training, networking, resources, all the stuff other than the software and tech. I'll talk about the software and tech in a sec. Exists within Virtual Solar Club. So I have just a brief outline because sometimes there's too much for either me or anybody to remember of our licenses here. Tons of courses. We're actually at 500. I just did a recount, 500 hours of courses now. It sounds overwhelming. Imagine recording them all. We do live training every single week. Similar format as this, but people on here asking questions live. We do every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then we do additional training sessions if people are in different programs. We do personalized sales call reviews, listening to your calls and giving you feedback on it. Obviously, all the basics, a lot of scripts and processes, tons of sales call examples, lots of discussion forums and networking. If you know someone in remote that's crushing it or has been in it, they probably are in there. They're probably getting value from it. And that's really our goal, just to bring as many people in the remote sales space as possible, whether you're an individual or a team with, 100 or 200, 300 people across the world. Actually, we got people in, with staff in like 3, 4, 5 different continents. So that's really what Virtual Solar Club is. So a ton of resources there on the training and the support side of things. You also get access to some free trials with our software. Sanevo is a project that we've been building for the past 2.5 years. So it just gives you all of that tech stuff in one tech stack. You log in, you start rocking, connects with a ton of great installers around the country. Fills that gap of your automations and your scheduling systems and dialers and even lead sources. We're launching some very, very cool lead sources right now. So the goal is just to create a platform where everything is there for you. If you want to jump into remote or build a team in remote or transition your team to remote. We're made up of, at this point, getting close to 4,000 sales reps globally now that we've helped out. And yeah, it's a good time. We do events every year. We get together. We're in the virtual call center every single year, every single day, just chatting with each other as we make calls and do this amazing thing that we call remote solar sales. So that's what we got going on. You can check it out. We got a code. We have SolarEdge, a nice little 10% discount code. Booking a call with the team. They'll help you out. Everyone you talk to is a remote solar salesperson themselves, whether you're a team or an individual. They'll get you going. You got a nice little discount code there for you as well. So that's
gosh, and call reviews and being able to listen to great calls. I mean, I wish I had that. I think all of us wish we had that.
That's why I built it, because I wish
good.
I had something like this back in the day when I started this, right? So I was like,
Yes.
what would I want? What would I want? And that's what we did.
That's so great. It's so exciting to have a platform like that. I know we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to stay with my commitment on an hour. But SolarEdge Sales Leaders, that's what these guys are. They're part of Sales Elite with SolarEdge. I will send the recording after this as well with some additional resources and some more information on Virtual Solar Club. Joshua, thank you so much. This was great. We have people shouting you out in the chat saying great information.
Too much information overload.
It was Nugget City. If we had to call it. I mean, 45 minutes of just nugget after nugget. So thank you so much. I hope we talk to you soon. Thanks for doing this again.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me on.